看国际辩论社第9集的播出。在这星期，爱沙尼亚、立陶宛以及拉脱维亚等波罗的海3国的国会外交委员会主席访问团来台访问，他们聚焦在国防还有安全的议题，另外也触及了商业、经济等其他的领域。在今天的节目内容，我们特别邀请到立陶宛外委会主席帕季格，带我们了解立陶宛为什么无畏中国全方位的打压，率先做出了退出中国领导的17+1合作机制，以及在他的眼中，立陶宛跟台湾又有哪一些惊人的相似之处？稍后在关键好谈要带您一同的探讨。我们要带您关心的是泰国的王室，令人雾里看花最新的发展。被流放海外27年的泰王次子瓦查勒颂突然之间踏上了故土，他还展开了一系列高调曝光行程。泰国人议论纷纷的同时，怎么会在长公主陷入昏迷之际来现身？莫非王子复仇记即将上演？我们会带您深入了解。而首先，我们要来看到的是近日发生在南韩首尔市区的随机砍人事件。攻击事件接二连三，都是发生在人来人往的闹区。随后，社群网络上还不断出现了杀人预告，有多篇的恐吓贴文陆续声称会在特定的地区攻击杀人，包含济州、大邱还有釜山国际机场都接获到了炸弹的威胁。根据警方的统计，累计已经逮捕了将近60人，其中大部分的嫌犯都声称杀人的预告贴文只是开玩笑。
车厢内突然传来尖叫，所有乘客胆战心惊。当列车一靠站，大家争先恐后死命往外逃。最终有人在楼梯处摔倒，7人擦伤。原来周日晚间8点多，南韩这列开往金浦机场的地铁9号线突然传来女子尖叫声，没想到警方到场后发现罪魁祸首出乎意料。原来是外籍女粉丝看到男神 BTS 成员 Suga 开启直播兴奋尖叫，却意外引发恐慌，被误会成发生随机攻击事件。南韩民众宛如惊弓之鸟，正是因为网络上的杀人预告，在各地呈现爆炸性增长。
전국에서 모두 59명의 살인 예고글 작성자가 검거됐고 피의자의 상당수는 미성년자인 것으로 드러났습니다. 장난이었다라는 진술이 대부분이었다는데요.
自从7月21号南韩地铁出口发生随机杀人案后，便引发模仿浪潮。除了类似犯案再度发生外，社群媒体上也掀起行凶预告，威胁要在各地仿效随机杀人，效应从首都圈不断扩大。
전국 공항을 상대로 폭탄 테러를 하겠다는 게시글들이 잇따라 온라인 커뮤니티에 올라오면서
有网友发文称要在济州国际机场进行炸弹攻击，并打算刺伤逃出来的人。接着釜山金海国际机场、大邱国际机场都接获类似威胁，警方还在釜山机场发现可疑白色粉末，连学校都成了威胁对象。
어제 저녁 7시 반쯤 온라인 게임 채팅방에 울산 북구의 한 초등학교에서 칼부림 예정이라는 글이 올라왔다는
南韩法律规定，若以犯下杀人罪为目的预谋杀人，最重可被判处10年以下的有期徒刑。希望借此吓阻犯罪者尽早解除全民草木皆兵的恐慌氛围。三新闻姚怀珍报道。
来看到同样位在东南亚的泰国王室，这一次引发关注的就是泰王的次子瓦查勒颂。27年前，他被罢黜流放。 不过，近期他突然间回到了泰国，让社会大众非常的震惊。不但他接连的亮相，行程还很满档，展现了亲民的形象，还说回到家乡真的是美梦成真。而泰国王室近期也正逢多事之秋，44岁的长公主在去年12月以来陷入昏迷，还有拥有第1继承权的提邦公王子，他最近也频频的露面，外界都在关注到底谁会是接班人。
一身休闲，摆低姿态和小朋友互动。他是泰王儿子瓦查勒颂，时隔27年回到家乡，开心之情溢于言表。
ก็ผมรู้สึกตื่นตันมากที่ได้กลับมาเมืองไทยคราวนี้ได้27 กว่าปีก็เหมือนเป็นฝันที่เป็นจริงที่ได้กลับมา
瓦查勒颂是泰王瓦吉拉隆功与第2任妻子所生的4个儿子之一。前几天惊喜现身曼谷机场，就引起泰国社会轰动。目前任职于美国纽约律师事务所，7号先是前往寺庙参拜，8号走访王室扶助的弱势家庭儿童照护中心，行程满档，展现亲民，受到民众热情欢迎。
ตื่นใจค่ะดีใจเพราะ ท่านจากประเทศไทยไปนานแล้ว。
脸书账号已累计超过9万人追踪，一张在曼谷乘坐嘟嘟车的照片，一天吸引破4万个赞，显见高人气。1996年，因妈妈被泰王指控不忠，母子5人流放海外。瓦查勒颂虽然没有王室头衔，但仍然保有王孙地位。泰国王室正逢多事之秋，44岁长公主帕查拉吉蒂亚帕去年12月以来陷入昏迷，而拥有第一继承权的提邦宫王子从小就患有自闭症，长大后克服学习障碍。
He appears to have some quite severe developmental challenges, which make many people think he probably couldn't do the job.
提邦王子近期也频频露面，会面高僧，游览寺庙，时机凑巧与瓦查勒颂互比苗头。泰王至今未指明下任继承者，是否上演王子复仇记，外界格外瞩目。三立新闻陈佩报道。
英国伦敦东区的街头知名涂鸦景点红砖巷遭到了挥洒喷漆，宣扬中共政党思想，喷上像是富强还有民主爱国这些红色的字，结果来了大逆转。我们看到许多民众不仅重新漆上了白漆，2度的创作回击，甚至把墙变成了嘲讽中国的新地标，还有人特地跑来这里和这面墙来合照留影，意外的变成了红砖巷，成了反共新景点。
英国知名涂鸦景点红砖巷遭到海外小粉红喷漆宣扬国威，没想到却弄巧成拙，反变成反共圣地。男子重新将墙壁刷上白漆，随后就有民众在墙上用黑色颜料写下好几排数字。仔细一看，不仅提到6·4事件，还记录下许多香港民运的时间点。就连中国网友也摇头，直叹丢脸丢到墙外。当地不少民众还特地跑来和反共文宣打卡合影，还有媒体架起摄影机当场拍照记录。不少中国网友还翻墙投稿，表示自己在抖音放上一张民众恶创没有民主的照片，账号直接被删除。就连微信、微博等中国社群媒体，只要是和涂鸦相关的讨论，通通被删得一干二净。但事实上，这不是小粉红第一次破坏知名艺术景点。
The iconic Lenin Wall was spontaneously created on the Mala Strana in Prague in the 1980s, a symbol of freedom and Western values in the then communist Czechoslovakia.
2019年，捷克象征反共精神的联农墙被一群中国游客喷上一个巨大的中共70周年纪念数字，同样被网友骂翻，还怒呛中国纳粹。如今小粉红再次输出红色思想，却再度翻车，反让更多民众勇于对抗中共强权。三立新闻谢天豪报道。
中国知名歌手刀郎在沉寂10年之后，在今年的7月重出江湖，推出了新歌《罗刹海市》。那在短短的2周的时间内，全球的点阅率居然突破了80亿次。而这首歌为什么会爆红？主要原因在于歌词的字里行间里面被解读说是在借古讽今，也就是在暗讽的是中国现在的社会颠倒黑白，唱到很多人的心坎上。不过也有人说刀郎是在讽刺当初批评他的大牌歌手。而更妙的是，连中国的官媒也拍手叫好，说这首歌其实是在讽刺的是老大哥美国，让刀郎的这首《罗刹海市》形成了一种各自解读的特殊现象。
其中收录的《罗刹海市》爆红，2周之内全球播放超过80亿次。刀郎的新歌不止在音乐上有所突破，更在社会上引起巨大共鸣。当家的茶然换作马虎，十里花长回明啊，他两耳杠尖3空壁，北森海远现转兵。每一日蹲窝里把蛋来活，老粉嘴多满板，以为自己是知己。
罗刹海市的歌名源自蒲松龄《聊斋志异》中的一篇奇幻短文，讲述了一个俊美的年轻人来到罗刹国，这是一个以丑为美的国度，越丑越能得到高位。
罗刹海市在讲述一位才貌兼备的男子，名叫马季。他意外进入大罗刹国，结果发现大官都脑满肠肥，小官才相貌端正。被毁3观的马季终于明白，那是一个以丑为美的颠倒世界。
很多人他是借歌言志。
有媒体分析，歌中的寓意可以拿来讽刺时政，而且那个是非不分的罗刹国正好比喻当今中国。中国面对新冠病毒防疫
严格清零，不惜破坏民生经济也要封城。后来爆发白纸革命，又无预警宣布解封。然而中国却说创造了人类文明史上的奇迹。
全党要更加自觉地增强道路自信、理论自信、制度自信、文化自信，始终坚持和发展中国特色社会主义。
自从习近平获得第3任期以来，开始推动习近平思想，不止公私营部门被迫学习政治凌驾经济与社会，连外资企业都不放过。中国社会遭受防疫乱象，还得接受党的思想控制。有人想借歌一吐怨气，也不足为奇。不过中国没有下架罗刹海市，官媒倒是把讽刺的对象说成美国。中国举国上下都在称赞刀郎，但理由却大不相同。
直接去骂谁什么的呢？没那么简单，他还是有他的人生啊、理想啊，有他喜欢的哲学啊，他喜欢的传统文化是什么样子的，他理想中的这个现代社会的一些改良啊，一些这个他看到的一些不公的，或者他希望的，因为刀郎还是给大家的印象还是一个会很善良的人。
来自四川的刀郎，2004年推出专辑，2002年的第一场雪，在没有任何宣传之下红遍中国，以270万张的销售量登上华语乐坛榜首。与刀郎引用《聊斋》的典故，加上乐坛的恩怨情仇，也让网友开始诠释歌词。例如说，马户是在影射杨坤，那幼鸟是那英，汪峰是勾栏客，高晓松是公公。虽然刀郎本人从未表态，但是看热闹的网友直觉反映新歌是在反击大咖。尽管汪峰拍影片澄清，希望专辑的讨论回归音乐，但是当年导师口中的农民歌手，却是今日粉丝眼中的草根英雄。不论刀郎是有心还是无意，新歌引起广泛的讨论，在现实中大玩没有标准答案的文字游戏，或许正是罗刹海市的最佳诠释。
这周的 Let's Talk 观点好谈，我们独家专访立陶宛外委会主席帕季格，要带您了解立陶宛如何不为中方打压，深化与台关系。国际辩论社的 Let's Talk 观点好谈，我们今天要来讨论立陶宛在2021年的时候率先退出了由中国领导的17+1的合作机制，甚至是在之后呢，更是让台湾以台湾之名来在立陶宛的首都设立代表处。也因此，在这1年多以来，立陶宛遭到了中国在外交上面还有经济上面的强烈打压。立陶宛是如何顶住这样的压力，甚至是赢得这一场较量呢？ Today, we're very honored to have the chairman of the Committee of the Foreign Affairs for the Parliaments of the Republic of Lithuania, Mr. Zygmantas Pavilionis, to join us in a discussion regarding Taiwan and Lithuania's special bond. Mr. Pavilionis, it's such an honor to have you with us on our program.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman Pavilionis, I'd like to ask you if you can kindly share with us your observation over the past few years regarding the special connection or the relationship progress between Taiwan and Lithuania. Is there a significant transformation?
Well, it seems it started decades ago, where I'm still trying to check the facts. But my recent diplomatic position, I was ambassador in Washington, D.C., and my embassy in Washington, D.C. was open for 50 years of our occupation because Americans never recognized our occupation. So my embassy was open, but to keep it open, having no state, no salaries, because it was occupied by communists, by Soviets, we had to have some resources. So Americans supported us, we got some Latvian gold, but it seems that Republic of China was shipping cash to us during that period, so you helped us to survive. That's why our George Washington of Lithuania, Vytautas Landsbergis, the one who broke away from Soviet Union, he knew Taiwan from the very beginning. Wow. And when we entered the young generation, you know, I came here 4 years ago, I was simply shocked and surprised. You know, I never saw Taiwan in my life, and I simply understood that this is a very similar story. You know, we are fighting autocratic giants that wants to annihilate us. We resist. We are very strong people. We are very well educated, but we don't know each other. And I was so shocked that no Baltic country has a representation in Taiwan, and we don't know you. So after this trip of 4 years, I wrote an article in Lithuanian media, let's do something. But I was in opposition then. Then we took the power, and even in party program we wrote that we will fight for freedom from Taiwan to Belarus. And we did it. We met your diplomats, and they asked us to name the representation as Taiwanese representation. We accepted it. Why not? Why should we bow to those communist demands and other pressures? And you know, after 2 years of working, we are very happy. It's not only political, those are not only political contacts. Today I'm already with Baltic chairmen who also stopped being part of so-called 16+1. We were 17th country that left the format. Today they are also here to open the formats. Today we have first-grade business contacts. We are cooperating, starting to cooperate on semiconductors. One of the enterprise that is, stepping into cooperation with you might soon produce 5% of my country's GDP in this area. The laser industry, where we are one of the champions of the world, we produce some lasers that nobody produces. We just agreed to open the Center of Excellence in your Institute of Industrial Technologies, ITRI, yes, that's the name. And I think that will be big.
Yes.
And then biotechnologies, solar energy. Even as we talked, you produce now with your technologies about 10% of our salads. So little by little, I saw Lithuanian wine that was served at the meeting with your speaker. I see Lithuanian beers and chocolate. So little by little, we are starting this great journey of cooperation that should be your journey to European markets. You are not so present in Europe. You focus on this big, fight between giants, Americans and communist Chinese. But here we are, Europeans who are like you. And we appreciate what you do here. And if you want to enter European markets, it's sometimes better to enter, through the countries that are very similar to you.
Indeed. It's very exciting that you mentioned all these connections and collaborations between Taiwan and Lithuania. But you also point out a key word of semiconductor, which I would like to ask you about. There are certain reports that suggest Lithuania's favorable stance toward Taiwan has a U.S. influence or a desire to acquire Taiwan semiconductor technology. What do you think of these suggestions or any clarifications?
Well, it's Russian narrative. Moscow spreads a lot of lies and propaganda about many, well, not only Moscow. Actually, as we discovered in one of the meetings with your fact sheet checking company, and they are connected with our companies who fight against propaganda. Russians produce narratives and Communist Chinese repeats and distributes it in this world. The same Cuban communists do with Latin America. No, we did it. It was our decision. In most of the cases, it is our decision where Americans are not ready to meet those challenges. When we revolted against the Soviets, okay, that was 33 years ago. We've been receiving very cautious support from Washington. We've been receiving letters from the West, don't do it, stay with Gorbachev, he's so nice. We said no. We said no, it's our freedom. And in most of the cases, we were pushing Americans to support our freedom. They didn't want, from the very beginning, us to enter NATO. We lobbied 12 years to enter NATO. We used all our muscles. We have at least 1 million of Americans of Lithuanian descent, mostly around Chicago. So this story, Americans helped us to when we did those steps with you, when we said goodbye China, big mainland China with your wonderful divisive formats where you want to occupy us instead of making business, China sanctioned us heavily, like really seriously. Interestingly, that they did it in cooperation with Russia and Belarus. You know, Russia has a war in the region, Belarus pushed migrants over our fence, and at the same moment when anti-vaxxers stormed the parliament, it was exactly the hour when China introduced all the sanctions. They even wanted to annihilate international businesses in Lithuania, German, French, British, American. If you produce one little finger in Lithuania, they wanted to stop the whole production. So European Union intervened. We have a case in WTO against China, favorable to us. America helped us to push China out. That was the help. The rest was done by our hands. We met a lot of people. I met personally a lot of diplomats, including your ambassadors. I call her B. Kim. She helps me in Washington to operate, but on some other issues like Ukraine. You know, we are fighting for Ukrainians to win and Russia to lose this game. We want this bully to stay, because if they win, Xi will make, well, he already actually made his own conclusions on Taiwan. So yes, your ambassador in Washington is helping to fight the geopolitical war because she is powerful in Washington, D.C. But this was our decision because even in Soviet Union, when we've been occupied, we had very strong semiconductors industry or laser industry. Soviets, they were using our brains for military industry, like the Sputnik that was flying around the planet. Half of it was made in Lithuania. So we have, well, of course, all those industries collapsed, but the brains existed. And our enterprise was doing the product, but they, you know, most of the enterprises, they were making it for scientific purposes. Our market is small. We are like Taipei, size of Taipei. We are 3 million only. Well, you are even bigger. So you have industrial applications, and we want to use our brains, to use our experiences for your industries. Small countries have to stay together because autocratic countries, and that's something that you still have to do with China. You know, autocratic countries makes you dependent. It's naive to think that you might change communists and thieves with your money and technology and trade. That was exactly the mistake the Europeans did. You know, they invested into Putin. Putin was killing Chechens, was dismantling completely democracy inside of Russia, and good, naive Europeans, they were investing into Putin. Well, we did the same mistakes with communist China. So get rid of this market as soon as possible. Find countries like us, go to Europe. Now 98% of Lithuanian trade is just with 3 democratic countries that will never break your bones, you know, twist your arms. This is the only way to survive, because if crisis happens, you know, industries might collapse, and they will use every centimeter of dependencies, those autocratic countries, to kill your freedom. So don't do it. Don't feed the tiger.
So you also mentioned about the sanctions and also our geopolitical resemblance between Lithuania and Taiwan. I wonder if Lithuania also encounters the challenges of cognitive warfare, similar to Taiwan.
Oh, yes, and I think we are even more sensitive. We suspect we suspect any move. We feel any potential move of our enemies, because we live with Russians as neighbors for 1,000 years. We want to stop this war. We want to save rules-based order, because if big countries with great muscles start to annihilate countries like us, we are all in Russian and Chinese concentration camps. And 20 years of my life, I lived in Soviet Union. I saw my friends killed at TV Tower in '91 when Gorbachev sent the troops. 3 of my friends from my own school, that is still called January 13. Those are the events, atrocities, when they simply crashed us with tanks. It was our Tiananmen experience. But we won. We then, after TV was taken, TV Tower was taken, I ran to the parliament. We were 100,000 of us. And I remember the Gorbachev's tanks who stopped because we were so many. They were afraid to kill thousands when TV screens and CNN was already reporting. And that was the first time in the history of Red Army that was stopped by civilian movement, by civil resistance. And when other republics got the message, they all got rid of those communists in Moscow. They transformed into KGB that still rules Russia, but you can do it. Being small, you can be great. So I see Taiwanese like this. I really believe that this communist system has no future. It eats itself. It's an evil, and those evil empires, they crawl very quickly. I didn't even believe how quickly the Soviet giant fell in front of my eyes. And now I laugh at them because I still remember Gorbachev coming to Lithuania and saying, "Oh, you will die. You will not survive." You know what? Today we are one of the richest nations in Europe. Russian salaries and Russian atmosphere they are living, it's not even to compare with us. So go freedom way, democratic way, connect with democratic countries, build democratic alliances, make it via business, via politicians, via brains and universities, via cultures. Latvian chairman who came with me, he was coming here to Taiwan to dance into your Ilan region like a kid of 12 years. He still remembers that. And your speaker was organizing their dancing festival. And, he came now like a chairman. He is nominated to foreign minister of his country.
That's so amazing.
So from little kids in Ilan, you have maybe a future Latvian foreign minister.
Indeed. That was a really inspiring process of fighting for the identity and also the freedom. And also I do see that the trajectory of Taiwan's path toward the democratic evolution bears a lot of similarities with Lithuania. I wonder what is the courage that strengthens the people of Lithuania to fight for such identity and such freedom to inspire Taiwan?
I wrote a very strange doctoral dissertation thesis about John Paul II and his fight against the communism. Actually, they did it together with President Reagan. They created this called Holy Union against communism, and they won. The war is not over, but they won huge parts of European territories. And you know what was my conclusion and what actually linked those two leaders, John Paul II and Reagan? Human dignity, your personal strength. When you remember the first words of John Paul II when he was appointed the Pope, do not be afraid. When communist and autocratic giants finally understand that this little person who is standing in front of tank like in Tiananmen Square, he's not afraid, they stop. As your speaker said, he remembered the Baltic Way we did in '89, 2 million of people. Well, we made a first step, but when first step is made at once by many, this changes the history. So I hope that we will not be afraid to face the threats, because autocracies manipulate us through fear. And all those Chinese compatriots that are still living in this dictatorship that reminds me more and more Putin's hell, and even the demands of or ambitions of Xi to occupy Taiwan, to take it by force, for me it's signs of weakness. Because if you want to take millions by force, it seems you're not attractive. You know, you try to work it through fear and force. It doesn't work. You know, I still remember my father was listening to radio Europe, you know, in Soviet times. I was not able to sleep because he was always listening to that radio. And human dignity, your personal strength, your spiritual strength, it's something like Reagan was saying when he saw John Paul II on his first visit in 1978-9 to Poland. He starts crying. He writes it in his memoirs because he understood that you cannot kill the human soul. You know, you can kill his body, but you not kill his soul. So they connected. Reagan and John Paul II started to work on it. You know, first organizations, first messages, and we revolted. We heard those statements. I remember I was standing in front of Soviet tank together with other deputy chief negotiator. Well, I was 16 years negotiating my country's membership in EU, and we were shouting at this tank, "What do you do with us?" And tank didn't kill us. Well, they killed one lady. It was rolled. She was 18. She was Tatar descent. She was killed by tank. We all remember that. But okay, Gorbachev saw our strength, and he stopped the killing machine. So I hope those people enslaved by those regimes one day say it's enough, because you know, democracy is not racial. It's not, you know, genetic. Russians are trying to sell this idea, oh, we will never be democratic, or Chinese cannot be democratic. Those are foolish lies. We are all born under the sun. We have our human dignity. Yes, we are different, but that's the beauty of it. But we all, you know, under God's or God, we are created equal. And we have to fight for this equality and human dignity. And when we start fighting, those empires grow, or they change, or they start listening to the people and serve the people instead of suppressing them.
That's very well said. It's not the enemy that will defeat you. It's not anything, not the fear. And it's also your strength, your soul, and your dignity that can make us powerful. On behalf of Taiwanese people, it's very heartwarming to know the support that we're getting from Lithuania. Thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate your time. 全球 What's Up？ 今天是国际左撇子日。从古至今，左撇子在不少民间传说被视为是不祥的象征。但是研究显示了，左撇子大多很聪明，而且许多名人也都是左撇子。像是美国总统当中就有4位总统是左撇子，分别是福特、老布希、克林顿还有奥巴马。伦敦大学的麦克蒙纳斯教授深入的发现，左撇子在数学、体育、艺术的领域也是容易有成就。像是画面中看到的是歌坛天后 Lady Gaga， 还有 Angelina Jolie 以及 Nicole Kidman、Julia Roberts 以及 Tom Cruise 这些名人也都是左撇子。所以如果家里面有小朋友惯用左手，家长们可以放宽心，不用强硬的矫正，让孩子们自由发挥长大吧。感谢您收看今天的国际辩论社，我是刘晨曦，我们下周再会。